Part 7, The Silent Threat. The weight of the text message hung in the air as Veronica slowly returned her focus to the room. She had to force herself to push the message from her mind. The last thing she needed was to become distracted by the hidden threats lurking in the shadows. But the truth was, this had just escalated into something bigger than she had anticipated. She could feel the tension in the room rise. Everyone was watching her now, and she could sense that the atmosphere had shifted. The civil rights representatives were no longer just concerned with the outcome of the case, now, they were watching to see how Veronica would respond to the pressure being placed on her. Sergeant Clark shifted on his feet, glancing between Veronica and Finley. There was a palpable unease in his posture, and for the first time, Veronica saw a hint of guilt in his eyes. Maybe, just maybe, this was starting to break through. But Finley, he was a different breed. His earlier facade of professionalism had slipped, revealing a deeper, more calculating side. "I suggest you all take a moment to consider what's at stake here," Finley said, his voice smooth, almost too calm. "Judge Williams, you're making a bold statement. But this isn't just about one officer or one case. This is about the stability of the system. If you push this any further, you risk destabilizing everything." Veronica could feel her pulse quicken. The subtle threat was there, cloaked in politeness, but it was there. He was trying to intimidate her, to make her doubt her resolve. He was reminding her of the power structures at play, and how easily they could crush someone like her if she wasn't careful. But she was careful. And she was no stranger to this kind of pressure. She squared her shoulders, her voice steady, and said, "The stability of this system is exactly why I'm doing this. The system was never designed to work for people like me, people who look like me. It's time for that to change." Finley's gaze hardened, and for a brief moment, Veronica saw the true nature of the man she was dealing with. He wasn't interested in justice or fairness. He was interested in maintaining control, controlling the narrative, controlling the outcome. The system had been working just fine for people like him, and he wasn't about to let a black woman tear it all down. "You think you can just walk into this room and change the entire system?" Finley's voice dropped, a bit of the silkiness replaced with an edge. "This system is bigger than you, Judge Williams. And it's bigger than any one case, no matter how much media attention it gets." Veronica didn't flinch. "I've been a judge for years, Mr. Finley. And I know one thing, the system doesn't change unless we force it to change. If you think that this is about me, you're mistaken. This is about everyone who has been wronged, who has suffered under the weight of that broken system. And I'm not backing down. I won't be intimidated. Not by you, not by anyone." Her words rang in the room, her resolve cutting through the tension like a sharp knife. And for a moment, it seemed like she had won. Like she had laid down the gauntlet, and Finley, despite his calculated posturing, had no response. The room seemed to breathe collectively as the weight of what she said settled on everyone present. But just as quickly, the atmosphere shifted again, like the calm before the storm. Finley didn't back down. Instead, he took a slow step forward, his eyes never leaving hers. "You may not think so, but you're playing a dangerous game, Judge Williams. These people, the ones watching this case closely, they'll decide whether you're a hero or a traitor. You're the one putting a target on your back. And I'm just trying to help you understand that." Veronica's breath caught. She had expected a threat, but hearing it so directly was different. It made the stakes all too real. She could already feel the weight of the invisible forces pressing in from all sides, the pressure to keep quiet, to stop pushing for change, to go along with what Finley was trying to sell her. But this wasn't just about her. It was about everyone who had been treated unfairly, everyone who had been silenced, everyone who had been told to accept the status quo because it was too big to change. "I'm not afraid of your threats, Mr. Finley," Veronica said firmly. "I've spent my entire life standing up against people like you. I'm not backing down now. Not for anyone." The room was deathly silent. No one dared to speak. The tension was thick, almost suffocating. Veronica could feel the weight of the eyes in the room on her, the expectations, the fear. But there was something else too, something in the way the people in the room looked at her, the way they admired her strength and her unwavering belief in justice. It was a subtle shift, but Veronica saw it. They were with her now. She wasn't alone. Finley, for his part, didn't respond. He stood there for a long moment, his eyes locked with hers, as if weighing the situation. Finally, he spoke again, his voice quieter, but his words still holding weight. "You're making a mistake, Judge," he said, but it lacked the conviction of before. "A mistake you won't be able to undo." Veronica didn't respond. She didn't need to. She had said everything that needed to be said. She wasn't backing down. She was here to change the system, and no amount of threats, no amount of intimidation, would stop her from doing that. But just as the tension in the room started to settle, a phone rang, loud and sharp, cutting through the silence. Veronica's phone. She glanced down at it, her heart rate spiking as she saw the name on the screen. It was an unknown number. She hesitated for a moment before picking up, feeling a strange sense of foreboding. "Hello?" she said, her voice steady, though her mind was racing. The voice on the other end was low and distorted, as if someone was trying to disguise their identity. "You're in over your head, Judge Williams," the voice said, the words chilling in their simplicity. "We know what you're doing. And we won't let it happen. You've been warned." Before Veronica could respond, the line went dead. She froze for a moment, the room still around her, the air thick with the unease of what had just been said. A chill ran down her spine as the realization hit her, the forces at play here weren't just political or systemic. They were personal. And they were coming for her. The room fell into a deep silence, the weight of the threat lingering in the air long after the phone call had ended. Veronica stood frozen, the phone still pressed to her ear, her heart pounding in her chest. The coldness of the words echoed in her mind. "We know what you're doing. And we won't let it happen. You've been warned." She could feel the eyes of everyone in the room on her. But she refused to let fear control her. The threat, whoever had made it, was just another attempt to silence her. She had faced worse before, but this was different. This wasn't just about one person. This was about an entire system, a culture of injustice that ran deeper than anyone could imagine. She couldn't back down now. She ended the call and slid the phone back into her pocket, her face unreadable. The room seemed to hold its breath, waiting for her to react, to show fear. But Veronica wasn't afraid. She was resolved. With quiet determination, she turned toward the group of Civil Rights Division representatives, the journalists, and the attorneys still watching her. They had been silent ever since the phone call, but now, their gaze was one of admiration and expectation. They were waiting for her to lead. She took a deep breath and looked directly at them. "What happens next is not just about me. It's about everyone who has been oppressed, harassed, or silenced. This case is about justice, real justice. If we allow people to be intimidated into silence, then we've lost. If we back down now, we'll be letting this broken system win. And we cannot allow that." The room was still, but this time, it wasn't because of fear. It was because Veronica had spoken the truth. And in that moment, every person in the room realized just how important this moment was. It wasn't just about a case. It was about history. It was about making sure that future generations wouldn't have to fight the same fight over and over again. Finley stood quietly, his arms crossed, his expression unreadable. But the tension in the air had shifted. His earlier attempts to intimidate had faltered, and now, it was clear to everyone in the room that Veronica's determination was unwavering. She had won their respect, and they knew that if they stood behind her, they could make real change. Veronica stepped forward, her voice clear and commanding. "This isn't just about an apology. It's about accountability. It's about ensuring that people who have been wronged by this system get justice. And it's about making sure that those who are responsible for upholding the law, who have abused their power, are held accountable. The attorneys and advocates around the room began nodding in agreement, a quiet murmuring of support rising from the group. They knew what they had to do. It was time to take action. Clark, who had been silent for a while, finally spoke, his voice steady. "Judge Williams, you're right. We've seen this happen time and time again. But I believe it's time for us to stand together. We'll help you with the investigation. We'll make sure this case gets the attention it deserves. No one should be treated the way you were. And no one should be allowed to hide behind their badge when they make mistakes." Veronica nodded, her eyes briefly meeting his. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. This wasn't just about her anymore. It was about a larger movement. And the change was already beginning to take root. Days passed, and the investigation into the incident with Matthews quickly gained traction. The media began covering the story, first in local outlets, then nationally. Veronica's decision to stand up against the police officer's actions turned into a rallying cry for others who had been wronged by the system. People across the country who had experienced similar injustices began sharing their stories, and the momentum for change grew exponentially. Veronica was contacted by civil rights organizations, government officials, and even citizens who had been inspired by her bravery. She became the face of a new movement, a movement that was finally holding people in power accountable, a movement that was finally forcing a broken system to change. The Department of Justice, under growing public pressure, announced a full review of their policies regarding racial profiling in police conduct. Several officers involved in similar incidents to the one Veronica had endured were placed under investigation. And Matthews, while not immediately dismissed, was reassigned pending further review. But the most important thing Veronica accomplished was not the media attention or the legal reviews. It was the conversations that were sparked, the dialogue about racial injustice, about bias, and about the real, human consequences of the way people were treated by law enforcement. She had given a voice to those who had been silenced for far too long. One evening, as she sat at home, Veronica received a phone call. It was from Judge Anderson, who was now calling to check in. "I heard the news," Anderson said, his voice filled with pride. "You did it, Veronica. You pushed the system. You made them listen." Veronica smiled, the weight of the past few days settling around her. She had done it. They had done it. Together, they had sparked something that couldn't be ignored. "I couldn't have done it without the support of people like you, Anderson," she replied. "This is just the beginning. There's still so much to do. But I'm not stopping. Not now, not ever." Months later, Veronica stood before a crowd of thousands, advocates, activists, and citizens, gathered for a rally for justice. She was no longer just a judge, she had become a symbol of what it meant to fight for equality. The crowd cheered as she took the stage, the energy in the air electric with the hope of a brighter future. "This fight is far from over," Veronica began, her voice steady, confident. "But we are making progress. We are holding those in power accountable. We are demanding change, and we are getting results. But we cannot stop. We cannot rest until every person, no matter their race, their gender, or their background, is treated with the dignity and respect they deserve." The crowd erupted in applause, the momentum of the movement carrying them forward. Veronica had made a difference. She had started a wave of change, one that would continue to grow, until the world was a place where racial injustice no longer had a place to hide. As the rally continued, Veronica glanced at the banners held up by the crowd, signs that read, "Justice for all, end racial profiling, equality now." She knew that she had made a difference, and that was a victory no one could take from her. And with that, Veronica's fight had not only changed her life but also the lives of countless others who had been affected by the very issues she had been fighting against. As the world began to listen and take note of what had happened, she knew that this was just the beginning of a long, hard journey toward a better, fairer world. If you're inspired by this story and want to hear more about how individuals can make a difference in the fight for justice, don't forget to subscribe for more mouth-watering videos that highlight real-life struggles and triumphs. Join the movement for change. Subscribe and share the message. Thank you for watching.